everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And today is a snow day because we have had a ton of snow here. It's not a lot for maybe the prairies where I grew up. There's a mountain chickadee, I think that's called. Not really sure, but anyway, got lots of them around here. And yeah, we got quite a bit of snow, and so they call the snow day for today. Not so much because of the snow, because this really isn't a lot. And it's the ice underneath that's causing all sorts of grief. And if you look at the neighbors up here, I don't know, you can see that tree blowing pretty good. So it's just a pretty nasty day all around. Yesterday, all the districts around us had snow days except for ours, so it kind of cheesed off a lot of people. And then today they decided that we would as well. So yeah, I thought I would crack open my newly purchased 1942 second edition and give that a whirl, and I'll be doing that momentarily. Oh, it looks like we even have a possible dove sighting up here. We have tons and tons and tons and tons of birds and animals, and we have bears and all that kind of thing. So I'm not sure if I'm zooming in on. Oh, there he goes. Is that a dove? I think it's a dove. We have lots of them around. So, but anyway, we'll get to the game right away. Oh, look at him. Yeah, now he's putting on a show. Alright, so here it is. Yeah, like I said, I just purchased this used copy. And here we are. You can see I've put clips on. I tend to do that with the games that fold. And I had to put one on here because when I opened up this one, the section that's actually connected just snapped right off. So these are two separate boards now, so I have to clamp them together. Not a big deal actually, because they actually sit flatter than this one here does. So who knows, maybe I'll snap that one too. But yeah, I'm going to get right into it here. And I played this on Steam actually recently. And wow, those, maybe comment below, are those dice crazy bad? I had one attack, I went in with 9 tanks. Against, I brought British tanks from here and here, and I brought them in, and I had 9 tanks, and he had 7 units, the Germans in Caucasus. And in the first round, I got 1 hit, and he got 6 out of 7. So I put the brakes on, had to retreat. But that happened in many of my battles. He sent 2 planes after 2 destroyers and 2 cruisers I had sitting here. He sent 2 fighters, and he won. I don't know why I'm calling the computer a he, but there you go. Yeah, just maybe in the comments below if you found that game on Steam is a little, I don't know, maybe the algorithm is, you know, when you play against the humans, we're rolling 4-sided dice. I don't know, but it was pretty nasty in a number of battles. But it actually made the game much more enjoyable because I tend to steamroll computers in this game because they don't tend to. They just work with math, really. So, and we have that good old human intuition. All right, we'll see what happens here on turn 1 of Axis and Allies 1942. All right, round 1 is done, and let's take a look here. Again, I'm playing solo here, and I've never played this version on a board before, except once back in 2018 when we had our Invitational, the West Coast Invitational, and yeah. I did not do well that game at all. It's pretty bad. But there are so many subtle nuances to each version, and sometimes you just get caught because you didn't count the squares properly or the spaces properly, or you didn't know that this unit could do that particular thing or whatever. So sometimes you just gotta make sure you pay closer attention. But we'll let you know what went on here in the Pacific. The Japanese have left the Americans alone, and they have gone whole hog for Calcutta. I thought I would try that and see if it's stoppable in this game. So of course, the Brits first attacked that Japanese fleet here as a battleship, a carrier, and 2 fighters. Well, they ended up sinking the battleship and the carrier, and then the 2 fighters left. Now the reason they sank the battleship is because the sub got the hit and sank the battleship, and of course planes can't hit subs, subs can't hit planes, so then the planes went and landed in French Indochina. Well, they landed here first, and then on their turn they went up here. Calcutta Yeah, just built a couple of tanks and a man. Brought the guy down from Persia. Did they? Nope. Oh, they just took 2 guys from India over here because the Germans wiped out everything in Anglo Egypt. Or not Anglo Egypt, Cairo. What do they call us? Egypt? Just Egypt. There you go. And they had nothing left either side, and the Germans didn't want to just have a tank sitting there, and so they lost the tank and kept the bomber. And the British, I thought, well, we'll see if we can salvage something here. But then Japan had pretty good round. Americans were a little cheeky, took Kwangtung back, but gave up Szechuan to do it. A little bit of Russian help here. The Russians are pulling back, of course, this way. I figured they need it. Some British pilots are already on their way over. One of the big stories is Krylia fell and killed a bunch of tanks doing it, but they still took it, and they had their whole air force left over here. They did lose a fighter to the AA to start the round. And the Russians took, what's this, West Russia, yes, took West Russia, and had a few units left, 3 or 4 units left, and then the Germans took it back in that little yo-yo that probably happens most games. The Russians built in Caucasus so they could get these guys to the front a little faster, but then the front got to them, so not a big concern. And so obviously there's only 1 artillery in Russia right now, so we'll see what happens. And with the next turn, the Germans went with artillerymen, and they built another artilleryman down here, and they built a couple of subs, knowing that America tends to come over here. So I thought, maybe we'll bulk up our sub fleet down here and see if we can't cause some kind of grief. So we brought our subs down and messing around in there, doing their thing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Not much else to say. The Brits built a couple of destroyers up here, and just wanted to make sure that fighters couldn't come over and kill the lone transport, because Britain's got to get in the game here. Because I don't think they're going to be in the game long in the Middle East or Africa. I think that's not going to work out too well for them, but we'll see. Dice haven't been terribly surprising here. I think this year was almost even Steven. And this fight down here, the Brits actually did okay, taking away a battleship. My fear was, and you can let me know in the comments below, was leaving this battleship and carrier, knowing they have another battleship and a loaded carrier, and letting them get together. I figure that might be curtains for anything the US wanted to do in the Pacific, unless they poured all their money in. As you can see, they did anyway, pretty much. Building a couple of bombers, I guess not. They just built a couple of bombers. And then the rest went over here in the form of a couple of destroyers, and they brought their cruiser up from 19. And going to use that. Got the fighter up here, knowing of course that it can't make it across from there. But that was kind of a neat move of the designers, so that you can't build fighters flying to London, flying to Moscow. It's quite a journey. So, but it looks like they'll get there in time anyway, if the Russians can dislodge the Germans from West Russia. But we'll see what happens on round 2 here of the Axis and Allies 1942, 2nd edition. Alright, round 2 is done, and as you can see, the Americans decided to build a factory up there. Just wondering if that's going to put a little bit more pressure on Japan. I've used Japan quite ferociously here, and as you can see, Japan has had a ton of success and took Calcutta with no trouble whatsoever. They only lost 1 man. The Brits had 7 dice, got 1 hit. So, not that even if they rolled, they might have had 2 more hits, right? And they'd still lose it, quite convincingly. So there's, yeah, I'm just wondering. I know that in Global 40. In the versions before all the house rules and all that kind of stuff came in, J1 was a big thing that people would do, and there was no way to stop
Japan, really. I think Brian Wasson did a number of videos on that, and J1 just crushed the South Pacific. This time I thought, well, we'll see if it works on this board, and it seems to. Now, it's not like the Japanese are rolling in troops here, but there's nothing else here. there's nobody else. You know, the Russians, they got their problems of their own. We'll show you in just a moment. So I'm just wondering, in the comments below, just let me know, you know, is this typical? Is it, you know, end of turn 2 and Japan takes that? You know, in hindsight, was it dumb to kill that Japanese carrier and battleship at the loss of the British carrier and a cruiser and a fighter? You know, it was obviously, it doesn't look like it worked out well, but is that something people do? Because there's really nowhere to run. I mean, you can try to run up into the Med, but then you gotta, if Germany has this, you can't even get into the Med, and then you're kind of stuck here, and the Japanese Navy will just hunt you down and kill you at their leisure. So it's one of those things I figured maybe, you know, give before you get. So, but American response here, I thought, well, let's throw one of those up there, and we'll see what happens. As you can see down here, I've been able to bring the entire bomber fleet down from the western U.S. and Hawaii, and they're all loaded up in Western Australia, and they, you know, they're going to have quite a reach, but unfortunately now they have nowhere to land, right? Unless they're going to fly across the south here and maybe land here, but then they're completely exposed, which was the reason for this. So they've come down here and landed. Yes, they're in range of the subs, but not the fighters, but the bomber can help. So we've got here 3 destroyers and a cruiser versus 4 subs and a bomber. It's a juicy target for the Germans, to be sure, but do they really want to, you know, possibly lose their entire U-boat fleet and try to rebuild? Because up north here, the British are coming on strong too. So took Norway, and not that it can't be swept away by a couple of Panzer divisions, but then there's just more on the way. German air power can't do much. I mean, they can come and attack this here and then land in Finland, but then they're pretty exposed to counterattack. So, you know, it's as I'm looking through all this, there's not as many territories and not as many units, and I'm just kind of fidgeting around here trying to figure out what's the best way to use the limited resources on both sides. Russians had a really good last round, and the Germans actually did not have enough strength on the odds calculator anyway to really take anything and do a good job of it. They could have attacked Archangel. It had 2 British fighters in there, and they could have attacked, but they probably would have lost everything, and there's no guarantee they'd kill the fighters, and then the fighters just go land in Russia anyway. So I decided not to do that, just to hopefully hang on to a bit more punch for the Germans. But we'll see if that worked out. But I'm interested to see, to hear your thoughts on what goes on in the Pacific. It seems to be just too big for the States to get out here in time to stop this from happening. I just had a singular purpose here, and I just came down here and took it, and I even built 6 units here, 3 each turn, and it still didn't matter. There's only 9 units total. Granted, I did take 2 of the ones that started, 2 of the infantry off, took them over to here. Had I not done that, this would be a larger force, definitely. But even 2 more men there, I don't know if that would have, it would not have held. That was just a convincing victory. So please let me know in the comments below if that's a pretty typical thing, and if people have house rules or different setups to maybe stop that from happening. Or did I just make a stupid mistake by going after that battleship and carrier? I just hate big Japanese navies roaming around, because then America basically gets into this war of who can put more steel in the Pacific, and then Germany runs amok. And to me, that's not too interesting. So this to me right now, as it's played out, isn't a very interesting game, really. The bombers and the decent little American fleet here. Yeah, I guess that's kind of interesting, but they've got nowhere to go. and nothing to do. They're going to have to inch their way over, and by the time they do, they're going to be in range of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fighters, 7 if you count the one from home, and a bomber, and then the naval power. You know, if they come to take the Philippines, I mean, mathematically that fleet's gone. And then yeah, you got 3 bombers, but they're just not going to do much damage. There's a fighter tucked under there as well. You can see him. So a little confused as to you know, whether or not this is typical, or is there something that can be done to keep Calcutta ironclad safe? Because not only did Japan take Calcutta, they took all of China in 2 rounds. And that's even, I mean, it was only 1 Russian infantry, but 1 Russian infantry came in and it made no difference. So, alright, well, we'll carry on, turn 3, and we'll see what happens. As you know, this is a game where you want to get 9 victory cities to win. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we got 5, 6, 7, 8. So the Axis are only 1 away. So that's, you know, Moscow, maybe the Hawaiian Islands. That's if the Philippines doesn't get taken back. So yeah, the Allies only have the Washington, UK, or London, pardon me, Moscow, San Fran. That's all they got left. Oh, and Hawaii. Did I count right? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I guess there's 13. I thought there were 12. Am I losing my mind? I'm losing my mind. Yeah, well, they've got 4 here on that board, and they got 4 on this board. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe I'm not losing my mind. But trying to take 9 of these cities anyway. They only have 1 more to take, and their economies are doing pretty well. If we look up here, see the 2 Axis are equal or above the Americans at this time. And Russia and Britain, of course. Britain's just going to shrink now. America can help out a little bit, but if Germany really wants to, Germany can send stuff down here. So I'm not a defeatist, but I can kind of see the writing on the wall here. If Japan and Germany really want to, this can be over, I think, next round. As far as the will to fight goes on, they can't take the other cities. I don't think they can't even mathematically or by the rules get to Moscow or the Hawaiian Islands, but there's not much stopping them from just continuing their march across the board. But we'll see what happens on turn 3, and I'll see if I can dig my way out of this for the Allies. Well, I must have done something like wrong here, because I think it's pretty much done after round 3. As you can see, the Americans have had to pull back and fortify here just to rebuild and give something for the Japanese to worry about. But the Japanese really aren't worrying. As you can see, they got total control down here. The British came over and took the East Indies with the transport that was here just for kicks. And yeah, the Japanese built 3 subs here, I was thinking maybe trying to come here, but there's just too much stuff. And building there stopped that, and had the Americans gone north, there's just going to be way too much stuff that can get them on the next round, because you got a lot of aircraft on both ends here. On the ground, the Japanese have got their armored divisions moving. Kazakh fell last round, Novosibirsk fell, Yakut fell. Just not a lot of hope for the Russians here. The Middle East is firmly in their hands. Americans, the armor, tried to zip over and take care of that lone artillery, but failed. And so now there's 3 there. The big story, though, is that the American fleet is gone, and only for the loss of 1 U-boat. They lost 3 destroyers and a cruiser and only got 1 hit in 2 rounds of combat, rolling 6 dice. So I don't know, maybe it's just the dice have been really bad this game. The odds calculator said that the Germans would probably win this, but would only have 1 thing left, like probably the bomber. but holy cow, still 3 subs. So, and anything that gets put in the water here is within range of that, and now it's within range of the bomber. So, America had to build in the Pacific. There's just nothing for it. Britain also lost their 2 small fleets. Probably shouldn't have divided those up, but even if I had kept them all together, then Germany just would have focused fired, and they would have sunk everything anyway. So, yeah, but 2 planes attacked 2 destroyers, and 2 hits and no hits for the Brits. And then up here they did get 1 hit. That's why there's only 1 plane in Finland. But Norway fell, as you can see. The Germans came across. They brought up their transport, brought a man and an arty, and lost both of them to the 2 British defending infantry. So 1 minor moral victory, if there are any, in Axis and Allies. Moscow is not going to fall anytime soon. There's about 22 units or something in there, and they're going to be joined pretty shortly here by a few more, but they're just in total turtle mode, and all of Asia and all of Africa will soon be in Axis hands, and all you're going to have is this island, which, if I were playing the Axis, would be completely surrounded by subs and lots of aircraft on the mainland. So anything they put in the water gets sunk every round. Meanwhile, I'll be chipping away at Moscow. I would definitely, as the Axis, on my next round, take Iceland, so that the Americans have a little bit more of a trouble getting planes into Moscow. In fact, I think at that point, once Archangel falls, I think it's impossible for them to get, for anybody to get fighters into Moscow that way. It's just too far away from everything. So that's what I would do. I just take the stuff surrounding Moscow, and I'd take it right after the Russian turn, and so nothing can land there. The Russians would possibly take it back, but then I would just take it back from them, and they're not going to be doing too many sorties out of Moscow and hanging on to their to their capital. So, yeah, please let me have it in the comments below. Again, this is my first time really playing this solo, and I really try to outthink myself, which is difficult if you've ever tried to play this game. I see an opening, but a lot of times, folks, the dice just utterly, on a couple of rounds, and when you lose 60 or 70 bucks worth of stuff as Britain in one round, yeah, there's just no coming back from that when Japan is making double your economy. So yeah, the economies at the end, Russia has 12, Britain has 22, America has 39, Japan has 45, and the Germans have 49. So yeah, there's just it just looks like it's inevitable. And yeah, and just so you know, this British bomber has been bombing factories the entire time, doing a splendid job of it too, and the Germans are just repairing and continuing on. So yeah, they were doing their bit, trying to get into the Reich's economy a bit. But yeah, so let me know if there's any opening moves that are just have to happen on this game, or opening moves that you shouldn't do. Of course, the one I'm referring is down here in 37. Is there something that Britain should do right off the bat? Should they just start ferrying fighters over to Moscow? Just go, 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 go? Does that actually make a difference? Should Britain build wait a turn and then build like 6 or 7 destroyers in one fell swoop? Should they build a factory in eastern Canada? I've heard some people talk about that. I was thinking of building a factory down here in South Africa, but money seemed to be too important elsewhere to throw 15 bucks down. And then, of course, when you build a factory, then you got to use it, right? And then every dollar you spend down there isn't being spent someplace else that might need it more. So I like factories for Japan, and I do like a factory for the Brits down in this area, but Germany just hit this so hard in the first round, there was no way they were going to hold Egypt. So, but hey, give me your thoughts, and let me know what are some better strategies for this. And let me know if you have any neato house rules. If there's a bid system for this one. I haven't looked into this game much at all. Like I said, I got my butt kicked at that invitational about a year ago, and man, I didn't have it till I just got it this week. So let me know. I welcome all comments. Just be nice. All right. So don't forget, folks, hug your loved ones. And thank you, friends, for playing with you. And hey, there might be another snow day tomorrow, so if so, maybe I'll try this again after looking at your comments. And remember, folks, may those dice be with you.